we'll see adapters and what type of adapters are that, and then you'll see configuring the most commonly used adapter, the DB adapter. Also, we'll deploy a composite which will use the DB adapter and connect to database as if the database is a service. Now, the question is, what do adapters do initially? So if we remember the first day's diagram that we usually look at, to look at this diagram, so here these are the adapters we are looking at. What the adapters do, they make an external software or an external module expose as a web service. Means they make somebody as a web service. That's what an adapter do. If it is a database here, if you are looking at, if you have a database adapter here or a DB adapter, the DB adapter will let a composite which is deployed here to access the database as a service. That's what it does. So it makes or it teaches an external component about web services, about XMLs. Now we're going to see what type of adapters are there, and we'll also configure one. Each adapter requires different configuration, but the configuration, the fundamentals of the configuration still remain the same. You install the adapter and you then tell about the backend software. I will say this adapter, as we are looking at it, it lets you talk to any technology. That's what an adapter does. But the talking is not custom talking, it's generic talking. You're talking to a software as if it's a service. For example, if it's a Java program, you're not talking in Java, you're talking in XML, as if the Java program is a service, or there are another SAP software. So there is no custom talking like in the language that SAP understands. No, we're talking in a generic language of web services using XML. So that's what an adapter does. If you see here in this diagram, the enterprise information system is an external system. We want to talk to that enterprise information system, which is probably written in some programming language, probably using Java or some other thing. Then you have a WebLogic which has an adapter. The WebLogic adapter, once you put it, the enterprise information system is now a web service. The moment you have a web service, we can call the web service from within a composite. So what adapters do is, they make the external systems as web services. That's a simple sentence. This is what we're looking at. Oracle SolveSuite 11G uses adapters to expose any technology as a service. The moment something is exposed as a service, you can talk to that service as XML, using XML. Now obviously the moment something is a service, we can always call that service inside a composite. When we are calling, or when we are designing a composite, we simply call that web service. And the adapters, they can be pretty much used in JDeveloper also. That a drag and drop kind of thing. You just drag the DB adapter, you have it kind of in the composite. Now whatever we have created in the composite, means whatever the developer has created in the composite, we will be creating at the WebLogic or SOL level. It's just like a data source. In a Java program, the developer creates a data source name, gives it as gives it to us. We go to WebLogic and create it at source. That's how, pretty much same thing. Now there are a lot of types of adapters. All these adapters are put into different categories. They provide connectivity between all, especially legacy systems, all the softwares used by many companies, like manufacturing companies, other product companies like retail companies like Walmart or probably Sears, that kind of companies, all of them. So they can connect to ERPs, enterprise resource planning, or CRMs, customer relationship managements. They can connect you to databases. They can connect you to messaging systems. They can connect you to mainframes. Anything they can let you connect. There are about 300 to 400 adapters that Oracle has. If you have a software, probably Oracle already created an adapter for it. All that you have to do is ask Oracle if they have it. They'll give it to us. Now Oracle adopt all these adapters. If you observed, they are connectors, we are saying. So connector between SOA and external system. Now actually the connection is between WebLogic and the external system. So if you probably if you've seen any connectors so far, the connectors are all usually in RAR files, resource archives always. So you will get a connector in RAR, and any RAR file we deploy through console. To the WebLogic. So connector deployment happens at WebLogic level. So if you go into our environment, our own environment, let's say, let's start our servers. Sorry. Oracle middleware. I'm going to domain home. User projects, domains, encode, sort domain. Let's start the server. Start admin server.sh. Day07 admin.log. Okay, it's coming up, almost up. Alright, admin is up. Let's start the so-so. Now while the source server is coming up, let's log into the console. What's the port number we are using? Let's start the database. We'll start the database. See these errors. Unable to get the database. Let's kill that source server. Admin server does not require database to be available. So it's the source servers, BAM servers that will have the problem. So admin is running. So I'm going to start the database. And then I'll start the source server. Start the listener. Now we're done with the database. Let's start the server again. Okay, now anyway, let this come up. We don't have anything to do with this. We are interested in the RAR file. So admin 123. That's the wrong password. Something is not correct. This is the port number. Why we are not able to log in? admin 123. It's logging in, then it's failing. Now choose another browser. Login successful. No, it should load. Looks like Opera has some problem. This one is loading. At the same time, let's log into the console. We're trying to see a RAR. Errors all come in RAR files. Console. admin 1, 2, 3. This is our WebLogic console. In here, if you see, we're trying to see an adapter. I'll check off adapters. So here, if you see, there is a database adapter which is available by default. There is a file adapter that comes inbuilt. Then there are other types of adapters. Let's see these things. Go into internal applications. You will see all the default adapters available in WebLogic. Not this. Resource adapters. Yeah, these are the free of cost adapters, kind of. They are available by default with SOA. So if you have advanced queue adapters, database adapter, DB adapter, file adapter, FTP, JMS, MQ series, Oracle App Server, Oracle BAM, socket. These are some of the adapters that are available by default. Now all these adapters represent a file on this one. For example, DB adapter, if you take, that's DB adapter. It's a resource adapter which will connect to the database. So if you click on it, you'll find the RAR file related to it. This is the RAR file. Now they are actually under SOA connectors directory under Oracle SOA. If you go to the server location, so in our case, this is middleware home. So let's go to that location. We're in middleware. Then if you go into Oracle SOA, go into SOA, go into connectors. Now these are the adapters. If you see, all of them are RAR files, resource archives, and you deploy them every adapter to WebLogic. Now if you observe that adapters are built on what is called JCA architecture, Java Enterprise Edition, Java EE connector architecture. It's a set of specifications again. These set of specifications will tell how a connector should be built or how a connection should be deployed. Now all these adapters use the open standards, means so that they are compatible with any kind of external system. So they use XML, they use WSDL, they use SCA, which is used by the composites. Then they use SOA architecture. So basically, the adapters follow what is required for SOA. And also, the adapters, they are not just to send communication to an external system, but also to receive communication from external system, which means they are bidirectional. Adapters allow a real-time bidirectional connectivity. You can send a request, you can expect a response from an external software, but the good thing about adapter is the external software will be treated as if it's a service. That's a good thing. Now these are the 4 types of adapters we are looking at. These are the 4 categories of adapters that were provided, and all the adapters that we have seen just now are Oracle technology adapters, the ones on the enterprise manager. These things, they are all basically Oracle technology adapters. Apart from the Oracle technology adapters, There are three other types: legacy adapters, packaged adapters, Oracle adapter for Oracle application. We'll see what they are. Let's look at this tag. This will give you all the four types of adapters. The right side, let me go this. Hold on. So look at the right side. This, alright. These are the technology adapters. You see a DB adapter here. You see a file adapter here. You see a MQ GMS adapter. There are a lot of other adapters. Now the same way, there are legacy adapters, which are this. The second type of adapters. They will let you connect to back-end softwares, like very old softwares like mainframes. Then there are some packaged applications like SAP or PeopleSoft, Siebel. These are the third type of adapters, including this one, packaged application adapter. Then the final one, Oracle products adapter. Here, if you see, need to use another color here. This one. This is the fourth type. So the right one you are looking at is the Oracle technology adapter. Green one is the legacy adapter. The yellow one is packaged application adapter, and the final red one is e-business suite or Oracle product adapters. Those are the four types of adapters. Look at this: Oracle technology, legacy. Just remember these things. They are going to come in your interviews if you're attending interviews. So Oracle technology adapters, legacy adapters, packaged application adapters, and adapters for Oracle applications. These are the sub-elements of each of them. The first type of adapters, Oracle technology adapters. If you see the ones that we have seen, there is a database adapter, there is a file adapter, and there is a MQ series adapter, and there is a AQ adapter, GMS adapter, all that stuff. These are technology adapters. These are legacy adapters. Most of these names you may not realize. These are old systems that were used, I think probably couple of generations before we started internet, or before we started pretty much using anything into systems. Most of these adapters are for IBM. If you see CICS, it's something from IBM mainframes, transaction server for IBM mainframes. vSAM, if you see, that's virtual storage access method, again from IBM storage. IBM again, IMS transaction manager, IBM information management system. Then this is a database, old database from IBM. So all these are legacy. They're mostly related to mainframes. Now Oracle provides adapters to connect to these applications as well. Now these are the commonly used adapters that you may come across, because a lot of companies will be using these products, especially SAP. This is something that everybody wants to use. Then you have PeopleSoft, then Siebel, JD Edwards, like this. So these are some of the products you will be using. Now when you use these products, you want to expose this product as a web service into SOA, you will require an adapter. Now all these applications are called packaged applications because they are already available. They are ready-made. So you take this product, already the product is already there, used by the company. You have installed SOA, so just install an adapter to connect to these services. And the final one, this is Oracle adapter for Oracle applications, especially the enterprise business suite. EBS. EBS is a lot of group of products. A company can buy EBS and they can take care of everything in the company, like how to take care of the finances of the company, like salaries, purchases, other stuff. Then how to take care of procurement, like how do you buy raw material, other stuff. How to take care of sales, means who are the leads you are generating, what's the status of the leads, are you tracking or not. Everything can be taken care in the EBS. So a lot of companies have this EBS suite. Now if they are planning on implementing SOA also, you will need an adapter from SOA to connect to EBS suite. Alright, those are the adapters. Now depending on what adapter you have to configure, the configuration changes a little bit, but it's always adapter is a connection between your WebLogic and your external system. So there are only two steps to configure any adapter. So here, if you see this one, step 1 is deploy the adapter. That's always step 1. Now your deployment is always through WebLogic console. The second step is configure the adapter. Now configuration of adapter is nothing but tell the adapter about the backend service or backend software. That's it. There's nothing really complicated here that you don't understand fundamental. The individual configuration of adapters might change. Let's say if you are configuring SAP, the adapter is expected to bring all the functionality of SAP. So you will have certain configuration options. If you are configuring PeopleSoft, you may have a different set of configuration options. If you are bringing in, let's say, e-business suite, you may have a different set of configurations, but it's still a configuration. The first step will remain the same. Now what we're going to see here is we're going to see how to configure a DB adapter. Now for the DB adapter configuration, I'm going to give you a rough idea of how it's actually done. This is your database. Your database. Alright. Now we already know that a SOA server is on top of WebLogic. So I have a WebLogic here. Alright. This is my WebLogic. And there is a data source that I already have. Which will let me connect to a database. So it has nothing to do with pretty much SOA. A data sources are data sources. Even a regular Java application can use a data source. Now on top of this is where we have WebLogic. SOA. So this is my SOA. And in SOA, I want to expose this database as a service. That's what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an adapter here, or deploy an adapter on WebLogic. Remember, the adapter goes to WebLogic, step 1 here. So here I'm deploying an adapter, a DB adapter. The adapter comes in a RAR file. Now the DB adapter directly will not connect to the database. Instead, it connects to the data source. because we already know that a data source is providing such functionality. So it connects to the data source like this. Now once I connect it to the data source, now I can expose the database as a web service. So now I have a web service which can be used in a server composite. So you see, this is pretty straightforward, the DB connection this thing. Now our configuration here involves step 1 is to deploy the DB adapter. Step 2 is to configure the adapter. Means we need to tell the adapter about a backend data source. Where the data source is, what's the JNDA name of the data source, that's it. And the DB adapter itself has to manage the connections to the data source. So here we have certain configuration in the DB adapter what are called connection factory. So we will be configuring a connection factory, and in the connection factory settings I will tell about the data source. That's the configuration of adapter. So first thing I'm going to do is the DB adapter deployment. Unfortunately, adapter is already deployed. We don't have to really do anything over there. The only thing we're going to do is to configure the data source. Means go into the configurations of the adapter, tell about the data source name. So we need to have a composite to test this entire thing. So we're going to have a composite. The composite pretty much let's see what the composite does. There is a table in the database. The table has certain fields like a employee account number and the status of that account. So if you are an employee, then there is an account number you have, whether that account is a proper account, currently active or not, or is it expired. That's a structure of the data available in the database. Now we want to retrieve the data using a composite here, which means we need to connect to a database as if the database is a service, and we're going to do it using the DB adapter which we have here configured. So the composite will treat the database as a service. What the composite will do in our test example is we will give an account number to the composite. The composite connects to the database, queries the table. In the table it finds out the status of that account number, fetches the status of the account. So we have a composite which we are going to deploy to the source root. The composite requires an input account number. Once we give the account number, it goes to the database through the adapter data source, queries the SQL, comes back with the status of the application. That's what we're going to do. Alright, so remember these two steps. Now for the example that we're going to use, the DB adapter is already there. If you see, this is already deployed. This is what we are looking at. This is the DB adapter. This one, DB adapter. Now the first thing we need is we need the table in the database, and the second thing we're going to need is we need a composite, and we're going to configure this DB adapter. So let's first create the structures in the database. Now in the second, this thing that I have sent you, document, we have all the details of the username which needs to be created in the database for this corresponding composite. You need a user called toGoDemo. We have to create that user. Alright, and then we need a table, customer info table, and put some data into it. So these first two steps will create a table, puts the data into it. Now let me do that. So I'm going to get into the database, SQL plus. Switch to Oracle. First step. Now creating a user, you have to create a user first. I'm going to create a user. Create user to go demo, identified by to go demo. This is just basic user creation. So we are saying create a user with this name, with this and this password. Oh, there is a user already. Select user underscore name from DBA underscore users. Describe DBA users. Okay, username we gave wrong, so there is no underscore. So select username from DBA underscore users. These are the users in the database. Let's see, we have to go demo. Yeah, I have that user. So I'm going to connect using that user now. SQL plus to go demo encode IT. That's the wrong password. SQL plus to go demo to go demo. Yeah, now we are connected. To go demo is a username password. Now this table should already exist because the username exists. Copy it. Let's check it. Describe the table. Yeah, it's already there. Now let's see the numbers. Let's count one from this thing. We want to see the number of records. There are 5 records in it. So select star from or let's select not star, we just need 2 fields. Select account number, name, select account number, status. Select these 3 things from the table. So if you see, this has 5 records, each with a name, the account number, the status of that account. So if you say Suresh Bonham account is currently in use, Ajay account expired, Anil is current, Ramesh expired, Raj expired. So we have this data in the database. Now we want to retrieve it. And traditionally, if you have a Java program, a Java program simply runs a SQL query through the data source. But when you have a SOA composite, you want to use a service. So we want this database to be acting like a service and still give the same details. So we will send out some account number. It should give us the status. That's what we are trying to do here. So our data, everything is ready. Now what I'm going to do is, these are the steps that we're going to perform. All the steps are given step by step here. Alright. Now let's first create a data source. Step 3, because data source is the one that lets you connect, and then we'll configure the DB adapter to connect to this data source. So I'm going to log into the console, follow these steps. Create a data source, first thing I'm going to do. So here, get into services, data sources. We're creating our own data source, which will be used by the DB adapter. So log and edit, new, a generic data source here. Let's give a name to the data source to go demo. Let's give a JNDI name. The JNDI name is specific here. You see this one? This is the JNDI name. Copy, paste it here. That's the JNDI name. The type of database is Oracle for us, so we're going to use that one. Move on to next. Oracle thin driver is what we are using. Keep it same. Move on to next. The transactions options are already given. Move on to next. Here, give the details of the database. Our database is Encode IT. It's running on this IP, on this port number. Username, we have to use the one that we have just now created, to go demo. Password for this user is to go demo. Move on to next. Now test the configuration. So your data source is able to connect to the database. Once that is done, target this data source. Move on to next. Target it, the source server. Because on the same server server, you're going to have the adapter which will connect to this data source. So we need to have the data source and the connector on the same WebLogic. Finish. So my data source is ready. Now once my data source is ready, let me just put it into a diagram. PowerPoint diagram. It will be easy for you to understand that way. This is our database. Alright, in this database, I'm going to create quickly. So this is our WebLogic. Alright. On top of WebLogic, I have SOA, like this. Alright. So here, WebLogic that I have. And SOA is what I have here. Now once I have it, my data source is somewhere here. So I create another data source. So my data source is here. Alright. This is my data source. Let it be. Alright. So here if I take this one, something is messing up. This is my data source. My data source is already configured. The data source name is to go demo data source with the JNDI name JDBC / to go demo. This JNDI name I'm going to use later. Now what we are trying to do is we're going to use this data source in the adapter. So let's say this is the adapter that we're going to deploy to the, it's already deployed to WebLogic, that RAR file. Alright. DB adapter. Now this adapter will connect to the data source again. Like this. Wow. Something is happening. So the DB adapter itself will connect to the data source like this. It will be an image. Alright, now we have created a data source already. I'm going to create a DB adapter is already deployed. I will configure the DB adapter to use this data source now. That's what I'm going to do. Let's see that. So let's go to the DB adapter settings. Go to deployments. Go to DB adapter. This is already deployed. Go to configuration. This is important. Go to configuration. This is where we are configuring about the data source. In the configuration, you have outbound connection poles. These are the existing type of connection factories. You see, there are some inbuilt connection factories. See, a connection factory basically provides connectivity between a composite and a data source. So these are some of the WebLogic used ones. Means WebLogic has certain data sources here. Sorry, SOA has certain data sources here. Those data sources are used in the DB adapter. Now we are also going to create our own factory. This is the type of factory that's already available. Select that type, give a name. This name is used in the composite. This one. So make sure you use the same name as it's used in the material, otherwise the composite will not work. This is used in the composite. So here we have given a name to the connection factory. Finish it. Okay. Activate the changes. So we just created a connection factory. Now in that connection factory we are going to tell about the data source. Now go back to the configuration. Let's go to the connection factory we have created. You see, there is a connection factory which is now created. This one, EIS TP to go demo. This connection factory connects to a data source which we already created. So click on it. You see, these are the properties of the connection factory. Out of these, you want to give the data source name, the last one, this one. Rest of the things you can leave as it is. So lock and edit. Go in there. Give the name, the GNDI name of the data source we have created. What's the GNDI name of the data source? This is the GNDI name of the data source. So go in there, copy it, that's it. Now here there is a bug kind of thing. What you need to do is, after you lock and edit, you need to change it. After you change, and if you directly save it, it's not going to be saved. Remember that. You paste it and you have to hit enter button. So I'm hitting enter button now. Hit the enter button, then save it. Do not directly save it. Like this means when it is active, if you save it, it will not be saved. It's a bug. They're going to fix it later probably. What you have to do is, you make your changes, you hit enter button now. Now I'm hitting enter button. Then you save it. It's important. Alright. Now the deployment plan was successfully updated. So you have set up your adapter to use this data source. Now once you have used it, make sure you update the DB adapter. This is an important step. Go to deployments, select your adapter, update it like this. Alright, use the same default options to deploy, finish. Alright, now activate the changes. Now you're done, which means now you have an adapter, also a data source, which is already configured to connect to your database. You have an adapter which can connect to your data source. Now this adapter has a JNDI name that we have given. This thing, EIS/DB/ToGoDemo. Now this JNDI name was used in a composite. So I'm deploying a composite now to our SOA infrastructure. What the composite will take? It will take the account number as input, like this in this one. It will take the account number as input. It will give us the status as output. So let's go to the enterprise manager and deploy a composite. So server, infra, click on the infra. Alright, now click on here, go to the deployments, deploy an application. Choose our composite. This composite is what is going to use the DB adapter connection factory just now we have created. So this thing, working application. I'll upload this composite. DB account status. Move on. Alright, so your file is selected. Move on to next. Select the partition we want to deploy to default partition. Next. This will be default revision. All settings are good. It's deploying now. Deployed successfully. Yeah. Now you have the account status application here. Now we want to test it. That's final. Test it. Now if you see the testing, it account a string. Now let's give one of the account numbers that we have in our database. So let's go to this. This is the account number. I'm going to pick up the last one, Raj. The return from the service should be expired. This is the return that the web service is supposed to do. So this is the account number we're going. So select this one. Let's give this account number to the account status application. Application testing. Go there. Type a number here. Not test the web service. Test web service. It's expected to return to us expired. Yeah, here we go. You see this one? Which means it actually went to a database, the composite. It executed an SQL query, which was written in the BPEL. Then it returned with the output of the SQL query. But here the important point about this whole exercise is to understand the database is now like a service which can be called inside a composite. So any kind of database you can expose as a service. You just have to install a DB adapter and create connection factories in the DB adapter. Now if you see here, yesterday I think we went for I was telling you about a corporate training, right? Last week. That's the reason why. They have 3 or 4 databases. What they do is they are pretty much interested in a DB adapter. So what they're trying to do is they're going to pull the data from one database, then transform the data that was pulled from DB1, put it into DB2. That's their requirement. So what they are actually going to do is they will create two data sources. Data source 1 is to connect to DS1 or DB1. Data source 2 is to connect to DB2. And in the DB adapter, so the DB adapter code is same. They will go to the configuration. That's what we did yesterday. We actually executed this entire thing. There will be two connection factories. We're going to create, lock and edit new 2 times. The connection factory 1, connection factory 2. Connection factory 1 will connect through DS1 to DB1. Connection factory 2 will connect through DS2, data source 2, to the database, which means both databases are now exposed as web services. Here you will see 2 connection factories, one pointing to each data source. Now the moment we have a web service, we're going to create a composite. So we have created a composite yesterday. The composite does a very simple thing. It uses connection factory 1, goes to the first database, executes a select query. Then the BPEL process, second step in the BPEL process is insert query into database 2 through connection factory 2. So here, each of these things will be used, is actually a service that will be used in the composite. These things may point to the same data source or different data sources. Alright, so what we are doing here is, by using an adapter and a connection factory in the adapter, we are exposing a database as a service. That's a configuration of a DB adapter, and also the entire adapters related stuff. Now here, for each of the types of the adapters, you may have a different configuration. What we have seen is simply for database adapter. You need to look at the configuration document of the corresponding adapter to understand how to configure or what properties to configure. But the concept still remains the same. You deploy the adapter, the RAR file first to WebLogic. Then you go into the configuration settings of that RAR file. You give the corresponding configurations. Once you give that, the backend software or a database or whatever it is will become a service. Once it becomes a service, it can be used in a composite. Using in the composite is job of a developer. You don't have to do anything over there. But we will be asked to create the connection factory settings for a database adapter, a data source, like that. If it is a different adapter, the same thing. You will be asked to deploy that adapter, configure certain settings. Alright. That's all for today. We're done for today. Do we get EBS connector? Yes, we do have EBS connector, but that's not free of cost. You'll have to buy. Yeah, yesterday they had the same thing. They have a EBS enterprise business suite. So the EBS connector is not free. You have to buy it. There is a EBS connector. For practice purposes, no, there is no EBS connector available outside. EBS is one of the most popular connectors. But anyway, try to do one thing, Vamshi. Try to go into our Oracle support. Log in with your support ID. I think you might find something relevant. or you can put a request to those guys. They have a kind of a developers kind of thing with limited connections. If you want to practice, you can actually get it. It's not impossible. Go to the service login that you have, then check with those guys. I'm sure you will get it. Just there are a couple of guys who are doing a little practice on ABS. Alright, any questions, guys? Any other questions on adapters? Okay, that's all I have for today. You're gonna take off tomorrow or no off? What's that you like? Tomorrow is Monday, so usually on Mondays we're on off, but just last week we are all completely off. What do you like to do? Okay. What about the other guys, Niranjan and Mukund? What do you guys want? Okay, let's do one thing. Take off for tomorrow because there are a couple of other guys who are traveling. So tomorrow I'm planning on starting an important concept, user messaging services and BAM. So they won't be able to attend it tomorrow. So the important concepts they will miss. So take off tomorrow, Monday, and Tuesday morning I'll see you same time, and we will be talking about user messaging services. That's a very important thing you will have to configure in a SOAS infrastructure. Alright, so if you don't have any questions, you can log off. I'll see you again on Tuesday. Make sure your practice is going on. And the Oracle clone is we are still uploading. It's a very large file, about 40 GB. So once it's uploaded, I'll tell about it. You can download it. I'll check with that one, Vamshi. The EBS connector, yes, I'll check with that one. I'm sure we have a couple of guys I can ask. Yes, I'll check with them and I'll update you.